I love finding out more about animals, you know, the whole mystery of them, and discovering new things about wildlife that might actually benefit their conservation in the wild. Okay, my name is Jakob-Hoff, and I started here in 1989 and as the senior curator. And since that time, my role has evolved with the zoo until now I'm more involved in conservation planning on a global basis. So actually I was born in Switzerland, and when I was a little guy of 8 years old, my family moved to England, and that's where I grew up. I started working in zoos as a keeper when I was only 16. 2 years after that, I moved to a zoo in Jersey in the Channel Islands, which was run by one of my heroes, a guy called Gerald Durrell. Pretty much everything that I learnt about zoos, I learnt in the 2 years that I was there. And that is that zoos are really here to help the conservation of wildlife, to help to understand them through research, and to promote their conservation to the public. When I was 22, I emigrated to Australia because I really wanted to follow my passion for wildlife and go study them in the wild as well as look after them in a zoo. I realised that I didn't really have enough education to influence the policy of zoos as a keeper, and I wanted more. I had the great opportunity to go and study at university, and I studied to be a vet. And I worked in a zoo in New South Wales as a curator and vet. And while I was doing that, the director of Auckland Zoo at the time, Laura Moomore, invited me to come over. She'd only just arrived at the zoo herself, and she invited me to come over and assess what were the veterinary needs of this zoo. At the time, they also had a curator-vet combined role. And I said to her, I don't think it works. I think it's much better to have a separate curator and a separate vet so they both can do their jobs properly. And I was offered the senior curator role to come and help to drive this conservation path. So I was a senior curator from 1989 to 1996. I think that, you know, one of my proudest achievements actually was getting people with the kinds of expertise that we needed to up our game in terms of animal welfare. Another important focus that I had was collaboration. I put a lot of effort into engaging and creating partnerships with the Department of Conservation, with the Ministry of Primary Industry, with universities. We were in some ways complementing the work that they were doing, but also that we could benefit from their input. Now, I mean, that is kind of just the way the zoo operates. But in those days, that was quite new. I am very proud of how that's grown in all that time. In 1996, when the vet moved on to another zoo, I took the opportunity to apply for that job because I really wanted to do what feeds my heart as well as my mind. Because I've got this deep interest in finding out more about animals, I was lucky enough to get the support of the director at the time to get the funding to develop this brand new facility, which would not only deliver state-of-the-art, best practice veterinary services for the animals here at the zoo, but also enable us to set up a veterinary residency for training vets, a research facility, and a diagnostic facility all in the one place. Because we recognised that this was going to be a national facility, it wasn't just for the zoo, it was for the whole of New Zealand, we asked if the Prime Minister could open it and shed some national spotlight on it, which she did. So that was Helen Clark at the time. And you know, we were very lucky to have her come and open it, and that was a very special occasion. So this is the New Zealand Centre for Conservation Medicine. This sculpture here is called Nurture, designed by a Waiheke sculptor called Don Stoddard. And what it represents is that when we people are in harmony with the earth, we send positive energy into the earth. And as a result, the earth sends positive energy back to us. As we enter the gallery, we can see that there are a number of windows into the working part of the hospital. In here we have the treatment and examination room. And in fact, there's a procedure going on in the surgery as we speak. So part of my vision was that this would be a place where we could connect people with wildlife. What used to be all behind the scenes is now right in front of people's faces. And we often have people drawing up the chairs here and just watching what's going on. And we'll bring somebody out here to explain what's going on as well. When I started my career now, just over 50 years ago as a young keeper, zoos were a very different thing. They really were much more focused on just displaying animals and not really thinking too much about what the animals needed. It's amazing, this is only 50 years ago, but in those days the world seemed so big and it seemed like there was an endless supply of wildlife. But of course there wasn't. This is a small laboratory. It's fantastic to be able to go and quickly run a diagnostic sample here in this lab. If an animal is critically ill, you want to know as much as possible, as quickly as possible. So yeah, this is really important. Through here, we designed this as the kind of hub of the whole hospital. A space at the front for smaller animals and a space towards the back, which has a specially designed operating table for big animals like tigers, orangutans, and so on. So what this place allows us to achieve is to deliver state-of-the-art, best practice veterinary medicine and surgery to the animals at the zoo, and also any animals that come from outside the zoo for the care of the veterinary team here. It also allows us to do some really quite sophisticated research, and it allows us to connect what we do with the wider public. I just feel this tremendous sense of privilege to have been a part of creating this space and seeing it grow and blossom. There's a couple of projects I've been involved in that I'm so excited and feel so privileged to have been part of it. One of them is the Campbell Island teal. Campbell Island teal at the time was the rarest duck in the world. It only came from the sub-Antarctic island of Campbell Island. They were thought to be extinct because none were on the island, and then this tiny little population was found on one of the little islets off the main island. A few of those were captured by the Department of Conservation, and captive breeding was attempted but didn't succeed for 10 years. By the time it did, there was only one female left and 3 males. I had been a veterinary advisor to that group, and I was asked if I would accompany the first release of the ducks to Campbell Island. That was a mind-blowing experience. The other one is the kākāpō project, and actually going to one of the islands, Whenua, being part of the team there, bringing my veterinary expertise, and not only that, but witnessing kākāpō actually in their wild environment. You know, that was one of the moments in my life. I was so excited. And I got the opportunity then to take on this role of Manager of Conservation Science and Research. Zoos are a reflection of the society that they grow up in. And in 1922, people's expectations of a zoo was that they would be able to go and look at them very close up and interact with them in some way. Now, people's expectations have changed. People are used to coming to a zoo and not necessarily seeing every animal on every visit, because we're giving the animals the opportunity to go and sleep or, you know, go and hide away if they want to. But also we have these wonderful keeper talks where people learn more about the animals, get more engaged with the animals. And you know, our whole purpose is really to connect people with animals so that they care about them, so that they have a future.